Good morning, Manna Church. Jeff Christensen here again, and welcome to part 5 of our study of the All-Encompassing Gospel for Morning Manna. Thanks for being with us so far. So we've covered 2 ways of thinking about this subject this week. We've covered the gospel and God, how the gospel drives us toward God, and we've covered the gospel and you, how the gospel changes you. Today and tomorrow, we're going to talk about a 3rd way of thinking about this subject. The gospel and others. This is how the gospel leads us to other people. Today, I want to look at what it means for us to take initiative with the gospel. Now, this means taking the gospel out into the world. 2 Corinthians chapter 3, verse 3 says, "And you show that you are a letter from Christ delivered by us, written not with ink, but with the Spirit of the living God, not on tablets of stone, but on tablets of human hearts." Simply put, we're called to show Jesus to others. Now, listen, I know very well that this can often be an intimidating prospect. None of us want to be intrusive. We generally don't want to butt into people's lives where we haven't been invited. And along with this, rejection is kind of a scary idea. We don't want to be rejected. We don't want to be accused of being know-it-alls or being too preachy. I understand all of that. So I want to encourage you to consider something important in regard to this idea of taking initiative with the gospel. And it's this. God has already given you a circle of relationships. You have a sphere of influence that already exists in your life. So taking initiative doesn't mean that you have to find a busy intersection and start street corner preaching. It means instead be purposeful with the relationships you already have. And doing this may not be as complicated or as intimidating as you might think. You don't have to necessarily have an outline of the gospel message memorized or learn some elaborate method of evangelism. Now, those things are good, don't get me wrong. But taking initiative is something that you can start today, simply by sharing your story. If you've been through First Step, that's the first of our growth track small groups here at Manna, then you're familiar with this idea. You already have a story. Who you were before you met Jesus, who you are now that you know him, and who you are becoming as he changes you over time. Your story is unique and it's powerful, and there are people in your circle right now, your sphere of influence, who need your story. God has done a work in you. Rejoice in that. Be confident in that. He wants to use you. He wants to use your story in someone else's life today. I invite you, take some time right now and ask him to show you who he wants to reach, and ask him to be your strength and to embolden you to share your story. Pray with me right now, just like this. Jesus, you've given me a story. That story demonstrates that you're real, and it demonstrates that your grace is true. Empower me, strengthen me to share that with someone else. Show me who that person is. And then, Lord, make me confident to step out in faith and share my story with them. And I pray over time, Jesus, that you would cause that story, that message, your work in my life to bear fruit for your glory. In your name, Jesus, amen. Good to be with you today, Manna Church. I'll see you tomorrow for the conclusion of our study of the All-Encompassing Gospel.